119. And we're gathered with the sages at Naimisharanya who, in the beginning, had a taste for hearing about the processes in the Vedas and the Puranas through which one could become elevated in this world. Of course, we know that there was a switchover of speakers at Naimisharanya because the first speaker, Romaharshan, was unqualified. He had not given respect to Balaram when he entered the assembly. Of course, we know Balaram was on pilgrimage because he didn't want to participate in the Kurukshetra war. Sometimes there are events that come up where there's a polemic during which devotees don't want to be involved. And so the solution to that is to go on padayatra. And I've seen it sometimes when there are intractable situations. Some of my godbrothers have gone on padayatra for some time. Or if somebody seems to be having a hard time in life and just can't figure things out, you just go out on padayatra. Vidura did it. Balaram did it. Vidura didn't like the way things were going. There was an obvious war coming up. Duryodhana was so bent on cheating the Pandavas and so unreasonable. He became angry and chastised Vidura right in front of his whole family in his own house, called him an unworthy son, said, "You're not qualified to even speak. Who do you think you are?" We know how political things can get, right? Nowadays, things are very political. So what's one solution? Go on pilgrimage. You just go to the holy places. There you don't get news. There's very little news. Every once in a while you see an old man sitting on a bench with a newspaper. But you don't hear about it so much. You're not tuned into the mainstream, and you don't have to be. You can tune into the spiritual world. And that's what Balaram did. He was friends with both sides. In fact, he had taught Duryodhana how to fight with a club. He had some camaraderie with him, and he didn't know exactly how to reconcile the whole thing, he'd just walk away, go on pilgrimage. Of course, wherever Balaram goes is eventful because he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Everything he looks upon is blessed and refined and corrected. And so is the situation in Naimisharanya, that an unqualified person, although he was highly qualified as far as knowing the Shastras go, he knew everything. He had learned all of the Puranas, the histories, he knew all the shlokas perfectly, but he didn't understand the essence of them. So when Balaram came walking into the assembly of sages there at Naimisharanya, everyone stood up except Romaharshan. He was sitting on his seat. Normally that's acceptable except for when the Supreme Personality of Godhead or when one's guru comes into the assembly. That happened to Indra also. Indra was sitting on his throne and he was being worshipped by all the demigods, and rightly so. He's the king of heaven. But then his guru, Brihaspati, came in and he just sat there. He didn't move. If you don't stand up when a superior person comes in, your life heirs move up when a superior person comes. If you don't stand up to meet the life heirs, then they'll be disturbed. And of course, Brihaspati noticed right away. It's very subtle, but there's a sense of breach of etiquette. And Brihaspati just turned around and walked away and disappeared. And then Indra thought, uh-oh, what did I do? I disrespected my guru. So he got down from his throne, he ran out, looked, Brihaspati was gone, and that then started the troubles for Indra. And trouble started for Romaharshan as well, because he sat there when Balaram walked into the assembly. And then Balaram remembered that this person actually is from a kind of questionable marriage. It was a pratiloma marriage. And he wouldn't have noticed that if he had stood up. See, all things can be reconciled if you just surrender and follow the etiquette. So Balaram, being the guru, he's the one who teaches the way to approach Krishna, could understand that the unqualified person was here, and not because he didn't know the thing. He had passed his Bhakti Shastri test. But he didn't have the spirit of it. He didn't know the conclusion of it, which was to surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So he eliminated him. And by his mystical potency, he picked up a kusha straw, which was abundantly available because they're used in the pujas, and the sages would sit on kusha. It's sattvagun. And he just tapped him, and then the Maharshan left his body. It left some cause for it was a cause of consternation to the sages, because they had already blessed him with a long life. So they said, Balaramaji, we understand you're the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but we've given our word, and the words of the Brahmanas should not go in vain. So then they remembered a verse that if a son is elevated to the seat, he can take the place of the father. The son represents the father. There's no difference in that sense. So Sutta Goswami, who had learned everything and was also in the proper mood, was elevated to the seat of esteem. That's why we have Sutta Goswami speaking at Naimisharanya. And what was the mood? How did they describe Sutta Goswami now that they gave him the seat of respect where he would be teaching others? They said that because you know the truth of the Vedas, having surrendered to all your gurus. What is the verse? Yeah. Veta tam saumya tat sarvam tatvatas tadanugrahat bruyu snigdasya shishyasya guravo guhyamapyuta. He's a guhyamapyuta. You know all the secrets of the Vedas. You know the very purpose of the Vedas. Why? Veta tam saumya tat sarvam. Saumya means that you're a very gentle soul. Means that you're submissive. You're open. You're not sitting with the assembly of devotees in order to prove yourself, or you're not sitting with your guru just to extract knowledge so that you can go out and do a Bhagavat Saptaha and make a living or be a big shot. Saumya means gentle heart. Vetatom saumya tat sarvam tatvatas tanugrahat. And therefore, anugraha means mercy. Graha means a grabber, and anu means to follow. So anugraha means when you're submissive to the spiritual authority, then anugraha, then they're able to drag you and pull you along in the right way. Anugraha. Bruyu snigdasya shishyasya guruvam. He mentions guruvam. There are many gurus you've taken advantage to listen to them in submissive spirit. Therefore, you know the truth, all the secrets, and you can impart them to us. Building a car. So now we have Sutta Goswami seated amongst the sages. Perfect situation, because those who are eager to hear, lined up with somebody who is qualified to speak, is the perfect situation. Because if you've ever had this experience when you're giving class somewhere and then somebody comes in who's not that interested, let's just say you're on Zoom and then somebody opens the Zoom window and they're eating breakfast, during a topic that is a little bit sensitive, and they're like, or just somebody who who's questioning or they're disturbed in mind, and they come in, and just like if somebody eats a garlic pizza and then walks into Mangalartik, everyone turns around and go, all right, who ate garlic? Because it emanates from the pores. So there's a way in which those who are sincere and serious about spiritual life, you can feel it. And especially those who are speaking about Krishna, they know in the assembly who's serious. That's why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu for 1 year had closed sessions in Srivasangam. He wanted only the most intimate devotees there. Nobody else was invited to come in. No one else was invited to come into Srivasangam because the mood would be disturbed. In fact, Srivas Thakur's mother-in-law had thought, let me see, I just want to see the dancing and I want to experience it. So she hid behind a basket, and then it started, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, I'm not feeling the ananda I usually feel. Something to it. No, nothing, and started again. No, I'm not getting in the ananda. Some impure person, they looked around, there was Srivas Thakur's mother-in-law, said, okay, you have to go out. And another time, Srivas Thakur, in a well-meaning way, had invited a brahmachari, and because he met him, and he said, he's very austere, he's a brahmachari, and he only drinks milk. So he said, you can come, what's wrong with this? But to prove a point, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu again stopped the kirtan, said, I'm not getting the usual nanda. Who's here? Some extra person here, outsider. And nobody, just this brahmachari, he only drinks milk. Out! Otherwise, all the babies in the world would be qualified to come into. So then, of course, going out, in his mind, the brahmachari thought, at least I saw it. I was there. I was benefited by seeing Mahaprabhu. And he appreciated being chastised. And Mahaprabhu then blessed him. So there's a proper mood that has to be created for the spiritual transmission to take place. So we can appreciate here at Naimisharanya how this is happening. There's nothing more energizing than being in a place that's designated for hearing Krishna Katha. And then the qualified audience is there, and the qualified speaker is there, and the transmission is taking place. Then there's a sense that Krishna is present. Vasudeva Katha Prashna Purusham Strin Punatihi Vaktaram Prachakam Shrotrins the Tatpada Salilamyata. This is mentioned by Parikshit Maharaj when he sits down to listen to Shukadev Goswami, and he's remarking that this is amazing that I'm listening, but naishati dushahasun mam takto damapi padate pibantam tvam mukam bhuja chutam harikatamritam. I'm not drinking water. I'm also not sleeping. And I don't feel tired. And I'm not thirsty. That's amazing because everyone in this world, except for those who have crossed over into the realm of taste for spiritual topics, is afflicted by sleep and also by thirst and hunger. It's a very difficult fast day. It's like, why are we doing this? When do I get to eat? But he was saying, this is remarkable. Normally, I would be affected because it's very difficult being in this body. It's very inconvenient, in case you haven't noticed. And not the least of which is the pain of hunger. It's actually a pain. And the pain of thirst. And the pain of sleeping. I remember one time I went to visit a godbrother of mine way up in Northern California. And he was on a totally different time schedule than me because he wasn't doing a lot of sadhana. And so, we got there and we talked until like 12:30, 1 o'clock at night, which was their regular bedtime. And I took rest, and I was like, I have to get up before the sun. I can't sleep past, so I got whatever hours I could, and I woke up, did my japa before they woke up at, 9 or 10, or later, I don't remember. But then I remember we were driving around. He was driving me around to show me things in the area, and all I could think of is like, I got to take rest. I can't. It was torture, actual torture, to try to be engaged and talk and be, look at stuff. Yeah, that's really interesting. But Parikshit Maharaj said, this is amazing. I'm not tired. and I'm also not thirsty, and I'm not hungry. Why? Chutam harikatamritam, because he said, I'm drinking nectar. I'm drinking nectar that's coming from your lips. This is what taste means, that I overcome the 5 obstacles to steadiness. One of them is sleep, and the other one's distraction, and another one is just being in that state of mind where you don't care about anything. Have you ever been there? You don't care about anything, you just want to zone out. Yeah, it's like, it's too much, the world's too much, I can't relate to it anymore. It's like I have too many responsibilities, so... And there's that. And then there's a way in which we have innate memories. They're actual dormant memories that become re-stimulated by our environment. I had this experience last night. It was a visceral experience. I took my evening walk last night, and I had my earpods in because I was finished with all my other stuff. I didn't have any chanting, anything like that to do, so I was listening to a lecture. I was walking along, and I got through Washington Park halfway, and I noticed there was some music coming from the park. And as I got closer, I saw in the open field, there's 2 baseball fields and open area. The city had arranged apparently a big concert, and there was a band, and it was kind of modern music. And as I walked by, I recognized the song. I even turned on, I have the kind of earpods where you can turn out the outside world. You bing, and then it goes like, it's not like nothing comes in, but a lot of the ambient sound is reduced. It's noise canceling. So I had that, I had the lecture going, and I was walking as wide a periphery as I could. However, the song I recognized. It was from the late 1960s or something like that. And all of a sudden, I was going like, body, stop it. Because I had this, it was coming out. There was a memory of that song, where I was, what it felt like, and everything like that. And all of a sudden, I was having this fight with, I'm listening to a lecture, but I was being dragged in another direction. This feeling that came over my whole body. And I was thinking, it's that one song. It reminded me of a whole era. Sometimes people ask this question, what good is karmic reaction if you don't remember? We do remember. We remember everything. The kind of visceral reactions we have to things in this world is memory. That's one of the strongest kinds of memories that we have, is the way we react to the stimuli that we encounter within this world. And I felt it, and I could watch right in front of my eyes, body, mind, memories from the past song, and the whole era was in that song. The sound vibration awoke a samskar in me. And then I had this clear choice, listen to this or get absorbed. Should I go to the concert? And we have that all the time as we're walking through the world, until the sound vibration of the spiritual world becomes more compelling to us. We have more samskars on that side. I remember the first time that I heard the Bhagavatam that it affected me. It was in the San Francisco Temple, which was on Valencia Street in the Mission District. It was a beautiful white temple room, because that had been the place in which the previous owners, it was a business, and the business it was a funeral parlor. So the downstairs hall was very beautiful, because of course they had to show the bodies there, and the caskets, really nice, and then the embalmed bodies, which were embalmed upstairs, the place we use for our kitchen. And but the bodies had to be shown there. But when the devotees moved in, of course, we used copious amounts of cow dung everywhere, and cleaned the temple up and down, and chanted Hare Krishna, and blew conch shells and everything. It was like, okay, move in. There were still a few ghosts in the basement. But it was beautiful, and we had the artwork like this on the walls, but in the contrast to the whiteness of the walls, everything white, and skylights, where you could see the San Francisco sun would come in, floor white, walls white, everything, deities, beautiful. When I first came into Krishna consciousness, I had read Bhagavad Gita. I was mad after the philosophy, But the pastimes, the stories, I remember looking at a Bhagavatam and going, what are all these stories? So where's the philosophy, And then I was listening one day, a mandatory class, you're in the ashram, you come to Bhagavatam class. And every day I'd come and I'd listen and interesting. But then one day I realized that I was attracted to it. And it was a topic about Krishna entering Dwarka and how the queens who had missed him so much were worshiping his feet and they couldn't quit those lotus feet. It was a phrase, just one phrase about they couldn't quit. And I thought, wow, God has lotus feet. He's actually a person. It just occurred to me in the assembly of devotees that God's a person. Never, although I had read it, I'd seen it, it's kind of what attracted me to come to the Krishna consciousness. I never felt it before, but I felt it in the assembly of devotees, and that left an impression that didn't go away. And as we move about the assembly of devotees in various places, you might go to a place where you're sitting with devotees and hearing, or you're serving in a certain way, and you have an experience that's undeniable. You feel that, oh yes, I just was visited by the spiritual energy. It came into my heart, it came into my mind, I felt something. And as we accumulate those, they start to override the previous impressions that I have. I get addicted to the three modes of material nature. I want the different combinations and permutations, and that's my eternal occupation, is trying to find the right combination of the modes. This is a nice taste, but it needs a little more of this or that. And then it goes into the mode of ignorance. I go, I want to ferment it now. Let's ferment it. Let's try it with something, pour alcohol in it. That'll make it taste better. And then I'll have a better experience. And so forth. Everyone's mixing everything, and it's all just the same three modes of material nature. And that's the taste. And that's the eternal occupation of the jiva, is try to taste something from the three modes of material nature. However, tadvag visargo janataga viplavo yasmin pratishlokam abhadyavatyapi. It gets flipped over by the Bhagavatam. That's what exactly. Viplavo means like a boat that gets flipped. And your whole world turns upside down, literally, and actually it gets turned right side up. We're upside down here. We're looking at the wrong end, the reflection, but then the Bhagavatam brings in the vibration, so you actually, wow, there's variety and there's taste in it, and it tasted good. You can't explain it necessarily philosophically, but you feel it, and you take it into your heart. And if somebody says, are you with these people? And saying, I'm with these people. Because you felt it. You know that it's real, and you experience it first in your heart. So this is the beginning of taste. So after Romaharshan is removed, Sutta Goswami is installed, and the proper way to invite a spiritual personality is that the elder member of the assembly should glorify the person and introduce that this is who this is. So they begin to glorify Sutta Goswami in that assembly and say that he's learned all of the essential aspects of the Vedas and Puranas because of his submission, his gentle mood, and his gurus have all blessed him. So now he's self-effulgent with his spiritual acumen and enthusiasm, and therefore he's sitting before us to teach. And as they're introducing him, they say, Vayam tu navratripyama uttama shloka vikrame yachinvatam rasagyanam svadu svadu pade pade. So this verse is quoted again and again to indicate the awakening of taste. And let's look at the verse. So first, Vayam. This is Rishaya Uchu. The rishis are saying, that's where you want to be, with a bunch of rishis. So they're saying, Vayam, tu, but not. Vitripyama, shall be at rest. Uttama shloka. Krishna is known as Uttama shloka because he's glorified only with the choicest prayers, and they have to be done by the right person in the right mood. Otherwise, it becomes a disturbance in society. You find in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Leela that the devotees found this poet, and the poet had written some stanzas about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and about Lord Jagannath. And everyone was wild about it. And they said, oh, he's amazing. What an amazing poet. Let's bring him and he can recite it to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But Swarup Damodar was the guardian. You had to go through him to come to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So they said, we want to recite this. Have him recite to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Swarup Damodar said, not a good idea. Don't have him come in. He said, please, please, it's so good, it's so good. All right, read it to me and I'll decide. So the poet read his poetry and Swarup Damodar said, this is offensive. You've made an offense. You've equated the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Chaitanya, with an ordinary living entity. You've transposed everything. You've transgressed the rasa, and it is therefore objectionable and is disturbing. And if Chaitanya Mahaprabhu heard something like that, it would disturb his mood, and also it would bring him a pain to hear such a thing. You see how refined the tune has to be in the company, that it has to be correct. It's in disciplic succession. We know that with devotees who are trained in the parampara, in the tradition, if we're sitting listening and then all of a sudden somebody says something that's even slightly questionable, everyone's going, wait a minute, where is that? Where did you, Prabhu, where did you find that? Where's that from again? And if somebody who's outside the tradition just by a little bit says something that becomes, that is obviously, we know is off, then everyone's kind of like, you know, where's the kusha straw? That's how refined the environment is with the devotees who are listening and the devotees who are teaching. So it's a cause for a celebration. It's a festival when you actually find the right speaker and the person who knows Uttama Shloka. That the words have to be perfect. Of course, perfection's not necessarily in the syllabary. It's in the intention that's behind it. The person has to have the right mood when they're speaking. However, Uttama Shloka means that the best of composers who are in the right mood have put these verses together. So that's why he's called Uttama Shloka. Vikrame, adventures. So this is important too because we need adventure. And we need to hear about the greatest heroes and heroines going off for adventures. The typical movie follows one scenario. It's called the hero's journey. In the hero's journey, which you find in Star Wars, which is a ripoff from the Ramayana, actually, a direct ripoff, not even veiled. It's person by person. Chewie is one of the the bears. That's from the right, the Ramayana, the bear-like. Yeah, Jamavan and so forth. They're all there, all the characters and stuff. Why did I bring that up? I started thinking about the story, and the hero's adventure. So, rags to riches. Ram, Lakshman, Sita go in the forest. They're stripped of everything, and then, one by one, all the people gather around them, and they rise to the occasion, and then they come back, riding on a celebratory chariot, and everyone's glorifying and yay, that's how every movie, right? At the end, the lame kid, he throws a strike and the crowd goes wild and it pans the audience and whoa. That's what everybody wants. And so Vikrame means you want that, you get the real thing with Krishna. How he comes out as a boar out of the nostril of Brahma. Brahma's sitting there. I mean, Krishna's funny too. Brahma's sitting there, God, how am I going to manage this temple? And all of a sudden, what is that? It's a pig, and he's flying through the air. And all the sages, Sahasra Shirsha Purushaha, it's God as a pig. And so then he shakes his back, and all the kusha grass in the world comes up, and it's amazing. What a story. And then he, has this, cage fight with Hiranyaka. And, they're fighting off and throwing and, challenging. You oughta, I told you. And next thing, bang, he kills him dead right there in the cage. And everyone's like, ah! So, all of that is there. And then afterwards, the family's disconsolate. So Hiranyakashipu comes and he consoles them and he tells them Atma Tattva Gyan. And everything that everyone's looking for is there, Vikrame, in the adventures of Krishna. Just nobody knows it. They don't know about how adventurous Krishna is, and that the original hero story comes from Krishna. So, yat which shrinvatam, by continuous hearing, rasa, humor. So this is the rasa, or the taste that we're looking for. And when you're eating, you have to have some taste. You can't digest food that you don't like. Did you know that? You ever notice? It's actually, there are scientific studies that show, you just like, I'm going to eat raw food now. And then you're like, I'm really not looking forward to it. Your body doesn't get any nourishment. Did you know that? Because the body starts to digest, according to Ayurveda, in your mind. You see, it's like the table's set, it's all clean. It's like, hey, I can sit there. And then it's like, well, who are the people serving? Yeah, okay, I like these people, I can do that. I can do this, They bring the plate, everything's set up right, not too much, not too little, all the right things, and like, okay, I'm into this. And then, it's like, right flavors, it's cooked right, and right, then it's like, I'm nourished, I'm happy, everything's fine. But if it's objectionable, you see, like, oh, well, there was a fly in there, but you don't want to tell the host because, like, they'll freak out. But you're like, no, I'm not really hungry. Whatever it is, we're very sensitive, and it's difficult for us to take nourishment, and what to speak of digest it, unless it's correct. So rasa is a specific kind of way of nourishment, spiritual nourishment. We have to have it as souls. In the material world, we don't get it at all. It's a perverted rasa. It's the modes of material nature mixed together. It's fake. It's like drinking poison that has a little flavor in it. You think, oh, this is nice, but then it kills you. But spiritual rasa is created by the assemblage of devotees and the hearing of Krishna's pastimes in the right mood, and chanting about him in the right mood. And when you have that, you can get rasa. And rasa takes you above the three modes of material nature. You can rise above it. So in the Gita, Krishna says, Vishaya vinivartante niraharasya dehina, rasavarjam rasopyasya param drushva nivartade. You have to taste this, he says, for yourself. You get the rasa. If you have that little taste, you have an experience, even if it's one time you have it. You're walking around Govardhan Hill and you take one step and you go, uh-oh, I just felt something. And then suddenly it's like, yeah, I had my own experience. It was something that changed me. And then you have some experience that's higher than the mixing and matching of the modes of material nature to find your happiness in life. So rasa, the humor, has to be there. Jnanam, those who are conversant with rasa. This is what devotees are. They're not one-dimensional. Those who study Gyan Yoga, and they're addicted to the idea of the impersonal Brahman, because they haven't taken the trouble to serve pure devotees. And therefore, the furthest reach of their intellect is to come to this idea that God is the opposite of the material world, which means this idea of Brahman. And so they don't know rasa. And then there are the Paramatmavadis. The rasa is very, very limited. But the devotees, itam satam brahma sukhana buddhya dasyam gatanam paradevdhena mayashitanam naradarakena sakam vrijaru krita punya punjaha. This is an exclamation by Shukadev. He's saying, as he's describing the pastimes of Krishna with his devotees in Vrindavan. It's already established by this time that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the source of Brahman and Paramatma. So he says, okay, look how this is. People who have only studied and associated with those who understand God to be Brahman. They see everything in relationship to Brahman, and they see God as Brahman. And then those who have been in the mood of Dwarka, like this morning, Radha Venkat Prabhu sent me a pristine copy of the Vishnu Sahasranam Stotra, and I couldn't resist. I had to listen to the whole thing. That's another samskar, remembering from the old days of brahmachari, and just listening to that, chanting the Vishnu Sahasranam, and I was like, I'm in Vaikuntha, and that's the Vaikuntha people, they get attracted to Vaikuntha and they want to be there, says the verse, and then that's how they see God. And then comes the materialists. They're in the material world, and when you talk about Krishna, they go, yeah, right, he's just like one of us. And they just think it's all mundane. They can't get any rasa from that. They have no knowledge, they have no association. But then the devotees, sakam vrajaru krita punya punja, because they've got this sukriti, this bhakti unmukhi sukriti from association with pure devotees. They have the fortune to know what is Krishna, what is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and now these boys are playing with him as if they were equals. And the devotees who know what that is, they enter into that rasa. Especially we sing Damodar Ashtakam, and there's this sense like there's nothing sweeter than this. Knowing Krishna's baby pastimes, crawling in the mud. He's got cow dung all over him. He's holding on to the tail of a cow. And the devotees are swooning because they don't think, oh yeah, that's just a cute kid. They know that's Brahman. He's crawling in the courtyard of Nanda Maharaj, acting like a little baby. So they have that humor, and it's beyond the other levels of self-realization by millions of miles. Svadhu, svadhu, pade, pade. So this is the key part of the verse in which there's this sort of exclamation of taste, which is svadhu, svadhu. It's so nice. I like it too much. Like if somebody gives you a preparation, it's so nice, he's like, this should be illegal. It's too good. Call the police. Like, don't give me this anymore. It'll drive me crazy. Sometimes devotees, they're so expert, they give you a preparation. You're like, I can't eat this anymore. I'll go nuts. And so that's the mood. Svadhu, svadhu, pade. It's too good. And then pade, pade, every step, whatever, and it keeps getting better. So this is the taste that, and this is just the warm-up. This is the warm-up at Naimisharanya, that they're like anticipatory. Like people go into a movie theater and I can't wait to see this movie. Oh, you hear the car chase and everything, it's coming up, and then the popcorn, and they're like, oh. And here at Naimisharanya, it's the real thing. The real movie is opening up, and this is so nice, just thinking about it. Just that you're here, we're about to talk about it, and they haven't even started yet. That's how good it is. And so that's what has to come into the life of a living entity in the material world. Otherwise, they stay here because there's no choice. There's no alternative. So the system that our acharyas have given, and Srila Prabhupada so expertly has enacted all over the world, is an opportunity to enter into this mood of rasa. And not in an artificial way, not like, oh, I'm relishing now. But it starts with understanding spiritual discipline with vacho vegam, manasakroda vegam, and how to interact with devotees, which is the next verse from Upadeshamrita. Huh? What's the next one? How to associate with devotees. No, don't tell them. Dadati Pratikrinati. Yeah, interacting with devotees and learning how to practice the methods of the great souls in regulation. Prabhupada says about this Vaidhi Bhakti in the beginning, he said like a typing book. You need it when you're learning to type. You look at it and he's like, this finger goes here, that one goes there, and you have to follow the book. But after a while, you're just like, how are you doing that? I have no idea. I just do it. So in a similar way, we start off, what we're following in ISKCON is Raganuga Bhakti. It's Raganuga Bhakti, but it's done in in a regulated form before we have taste. But we're still following Raga Nuga Bhakti. But it's before we have taste, we follow it in a regular way. And because of our proximity to the various activities that I just mentioned, some of them, that naturally will start to develop an attraction for the topics, for the services, for the associations, and so forth. And when we're able to overcome the 5 obstacles to Nishta, which have to do with my innate tendencies to enjoy the material world, the senses which are out of control, the tendency to want to enter into nothingness and just look at a screen and not be anywhere, and not be interested in Krishna Katha. The mind just goes into a neutral mode. Or sleep, or distraction. These are the 5 obstacles. As we practice and we're able to overcome these 5 obstacles, then we come to a steadiness in devotional service. Nashtaprayeshu bhadreshu nityam bhagavatis sevaya bhagavatuttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. Then we're partway there. The next step is ruchi, because as we continue on the platform of steadiness, then we'll start getting a positive influx of taste. I didn't like that phrase. We'll start getting taste. And from that, we start to pull away from the material world altogether. We have the wherewithal to always come back to Krishna consciousness, even though we are absorbed otherwise. It's not that we get pulled away permanently by our worldly duties and attractions. And then finally, next we come to asakti, which means that we're so fixed on Krishna consciousness and serving and appreciating that taste of serving Krishna by hearing and chanting and distributing and so forth, that it's hard for us to pay attention to the material world at all. In other words, we have to drag ourselves away from that in order to keep our eye on the road as far as our life goes. And then, of course, comes bhava, when the heart actually is touched by the internal energy from the spiritual world, where the pastimes start to awaken. The rasa is actually there within the heart, so that the person's always enjoying it in their heart, in his or her heart, enjoying it. This is awakened by the process of bhakti that we're practicing here in ISKCON. And then finally, prema. Prema comes as the crown jewel. Prema pumarto mahan, the ultimate goal of life is to attain this prema. So we should try for nishta, and we should be in every circumstance that we can to get this rasa, or this taste, because we need it. We have to have it to survive. At least enough to wet your beak. Get enough to wet your beak. If you can wet your beak, and you're just like, I got a little something, I know it's there, then your faith can become stronger and stronger, because it's not somebody can tell you this, that, the other thing, but you're like, no, wait a minute, I tasted it for myself. And then from there, we can make further advancement and actually come to the higher positions in devotional service. Om Tat Sat. Hare Krishna. And now we'll take some reflections or questions, and we would like to honor any of those who are online. We'd like to see you too, in case there is anybody on Zoom. Are we still connected? So if there's anybody from the Facebook or from online who's put up questions, we'll be attentive to those, because we love you so much. And we don't forget where we came from. Anything?
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
I have one question. Thank you for such inspiring.
Is that Shamrupa? The Shamrupa? Hare Krishna. Go ahead, Prabhu.
One more time, such an inspiring lecture. So I had one question that we see this story of Rom Harshan, and also in Lord Chaitanya's Lila, we have Devananda Pandit story, who was reciting Bhagavatam but actually missed the essence. So my question to you, Maharaj, is that the Bhagavatam, when we hear, it's supposed to and we are supposed to purify us, and we are supposed to develop attraction for the lordships and the holy name and the Vaishnavas. Rumaharsan seems like uh, with all the sages, even Devananda Pandit was in Navadvip. So what is it that went wrong? What are the factors that can pull us away from missing the essence? And what are the factors that can help us to actually catch the essence?
Thank you for such an important question that's related to the topic. Let me answer it in the positive side. Prithu Maharaj, in his prayers to the Lord, says that it's such a wonderful thing, a phenomenon, that those who already have a taste for Krishna consciousness, they have what I call spiritual integrity. Spiritual integrity means you're actually following the process. If you're doing that, you'll get this sense that I'm okay. No matter what else is happening, I'm okay because I know what to do. I can handle this. And not only that, you have confidence in your realization because you know you're following the process. And it's not that you become proud, and it's not that you become condescending, but it's a sense of spiritual self-esteem because you know that I'm doing my level best. And so that's the beginning. When somebody like that speaks, you'll notice a difference between that and somebody who's merely academically presenting the process. Like somebody can be a learned professor, but is not following the process and then is giving the knowledge. And there's a difference. And what is the difference? Prithu Maharaj says, okay, so if somebody he's saying, already has this rasa, this experience, and they're inexplicably attracted to the holy name and have developed this prema in their heart. When they speak, the sound vibration that comes from their mouth touches Krishna's lotus feet. And on Krishna's lotus feet, there is saffron, and his lotus feet are anointed with saffron. Like when you worship the deity, everything smells good. You've got chatushama, you've got the sandalwood paste. You know how to make sandalwood paste? Take a grinding stone, you get a block of sandalwood, you put a little natural gulab, this rose water. You can get the really good stuff. You put that on there. Talk about aromatherapy. When you're making stuff for Krishna, you're like, and then you put a tiny little bit of saffron, not too much, or everything comes out red. Just a hint. Saffron always just a little hint. And it's not a good idea to use it for first grain ceremonies. We found out the other day, babies don't like saffron. It's an acquired taste. Okay, so there's an extra tip. So then you put a little camphor, natural camphor, edible camphor. I was shopping around for it in Lowy Bazaar. I went in one of the shops, and said, edible camphor. I said, how do I know? And he goes, I'll take it. So you get edible camphor and a little saffron, a little water, and then you grind it. And it comes out this paste. Who has that stuff? Intel? Google? How about Salesforce? They got clink, 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 and like, and it's like, where's the rasa? But Krishna, you get this, sandal paste and saffron, and it's like, dab, dab, take the best flour, dab it on his lotus feet, put a tulsi leaf in it, like, are you okay? I think so, I'm all right now. And so when the pure devotee speaks, the sound vibration goes, it touches Krishna's lotus feet, it dislodges the saffron particles, and the sound vibration gets mixed with that. How do you know? Listen to it. See what happens to you. And all of a sudden, you bring somebody into the room who doesn't know that much about it, or they're like, I'm not sure. And then they listen to somebody like that, and they go, okay. You look at them, it's like, what happened to you? What just happened to you? It's like, I don't know, but I'm in. They count me in. Why? Because the sound vibration from that person was different. It was mixed with the saffron particles, saffron mercy particles that you don't get anywhere else except from the heart of a person who's got spiritual integrity and who's then developed this rasa in his or her heart, and then they speak. And then the change takes place. So if somebody's academic and they're not really on that level, if they have some doubt about Krishna or some envy of Krishna, and then they speak, the vibration doesn't move the person. So that's why Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur had created a diorama, and he was against these people who, they become very expert. It's like you learn C++, you learn Bhagavatam. And so they would learn everything, and then they come out and they know all the ragas, they can sing all the tunes, but behind the veil, they're thinking, rupee, rupee, rupee. There's what's in it for me, and I'm going to, take this and use it for sense gratification. The vibration changes. It's like there's Sita and Maya Sita. Who did Ravana get? Maya Sita. So I'm taking this for myself. And then quicko changeo. And next thing you know, you got the fake thing. So this is the direction that we're given from the Shastra. It's a tune that comes from the spiritual world, and you can't fake that. You actually have to have it. You can't imitate it. It has to come from the heart. So the Shastra says, what is my verse? Some Pandit? Tell me. The verse I'm thinking can only be spoken by Vaishnava. Vaishnava Mukund, thank you. Vaishnava Mukund Grinnam Sutam Harikatam Ritam. What is it? Shravanam Naiva Kartavyam Sarpo Chishta Yatapaya. So this verse says that if you take milk that's already been tasted by a little snake, you put out a little bowl of milk, snake comes along, helps himself, and then you come in and dum-dee-dum-dee-dum, and it's like, yuck, it's poison. And so same thing, if somebody has an ill intent and they're speaking of Bhagavatam, or they have envy of the Supreme Personality of God, they don't know how to stand up when God walks in, or when the pure devotee walks in. They speak Bhagavatam, it's tainted. Don't listen to it, the Bhagavatam says. Vaishnava makun girnam putam harikatam ritam. You don't get the purification, the putam, if it's not coming from the heart of a pure Vaishnava. That's why Rupa Goswami says in the Upadeshamrita about association, verse. Yeah, but that says that don't associate with worldly minded people. Better give a mic so we know if we're actually saying the verse. Okay, go ahead. Srivats. Okay, and then Vaikuntha Nayaka. Go ahead. Give us the verse quick.
It says Sangat Yagat Sato Vritte, which is you should avoid bad association and associate with the devotees.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's guaranteed. If you listen to materialistic people, you hang around with them for a little while, hear a few words that they say, it goes right in. And then your ability to appreciate rasa becomes diminished. It doesn't mean don't mix with the world. It just means don't keep an open channel. Be careful how you move about the world and what you're listening to and what you're leaning into. And also be careful about whom you associate with, unless it's official. If you're going there because, maybe I'll get something from this too. You will get something from it, but it's not going to help you. It's not going to help you attain the goal of life, that's for sure. Vaikuntha Nayaka Prabhu, please go ahead.
Dandat Pranam Guru Maharaj, all glory Srila Prabhupada. I was hoping if you could elaborate a bit on that Star Wars and Ramayana comparison. I thought it will be a great way to attract people, be it in books or in preaching, because Star Wars has got such a cult following. and they might be intrigued. So if you think it's appropriate, if you could just elaborate. I don't know much about Star Wars, but if you can do the comparison.
Well, I hope that's not an indication that I do know. However, I saw an excellent presentation by His Grace Yogeshwara Prabhu at a Temple President's meeting in Houston, maybe 5 years ago. And he's a great scholar and a devotee, and he gave a one-to-one correlation with all the characters and explained how the hero's journey and how George Lucas had taken the script basically from the Ramayana. When I said ripped off, it's not necessarily malicious. It's just like, here's a great story. It's open source. Anybody can take it. But that's how we go. Yes, please, Rasa Sindhu.
There's a book by Satyaraj Prabhu.
Oh, yeah.
There's a book by Satyaraj Prabhu called Star Wars and the Jedi and the Blue Lotus. And he actually correlates Srila Prabhupada's teachings that how George Lucas, when he was living in Los Angeles, he actually met the devotees and started reading Oriental philosophy. So he gave Prabhupada's presentation and verses also.
Thank you for letting us know that. And Satyaraj Prabhu, godbrother of mine, one of the most good-hearted people I've ever met in my life. And he's a prolific writer. Nobody knows that much because I don't know if the marketing end of his books is that he usually goes and distributes himself, but he writes prolifically. Actually, he's had some commercial success in writing his books, but a better-hearted person you'll never meet than Satyaraj Prabhu. Highly recommend his books. Okay. One more online? Okay. One more on the board, and then we're coming to the live studio audience. Could those occasional visitations of the spiritual energy be called spirits? Sporties, yes. The root of the word sporti is spot, which means an explosion. And so this is Atashi Krishna Namadi Nabhaved Grayamindare Sevan Mukhi Jivado Swayameva Spuratyada. So there's a way in which there's a kind of sudden appearance of Krishna within the heart. A good example of this is with Narada Muni. When he was a child, he had really good association because he was an exceptional child. And that's why you'll notice, if you read carefully in that section of the Bhagavatam, that the sages stayed longer than the rainy season. They liked the kid so much. They saw so much potential. They said, let's stay here. It's worth the investment. And then they left, and then by providence, the mother died. He was alone, and he had the wherewithal at a very young age to go off into the world and look at things and observe how Krishna's energies were working. After all, he didn't know much about that. He was 5 years old. He had lived at home with his mother, but he had heard enough from the sages to have a practice and to be really inspired. And he went to a lonely forest, and he said, this is the place to find God, in this forest. And he sat down and he started doing his mantras and his meditations, and he had a spurti. And that spurti was such a profound experience that he had felt that every one of his senses was simultaneously attracted to serving Krishna's senses. They were running after him. And the taste was so high that when he came out of that experience, it was like crashing down into the world of dull matter and feeling oneself, as Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Shunyayatam Jagat Sarvam. The whole world feels void. There's nothing in this for me. It's horrible. And he was then, I could sit straighter. Now I will really say my mantra. I want that back. And Krishna spoke to him in an unembodied voice and said, you think you're a big yogi, you're sitting here in the forest, but that's not it. It'll come. Take your time. You need to mature more. And then I've given you a taste, you know what to look for. This is what you're going to get only all the time. So he became very motivated. So yes, the spurtis come by Krishna's arrangement, you get a free sample. And then you don't forget it. And this is mentioned by Narada himself when he says, I need the verse, 1:5, I think it's 20 or 21. Could somebody? It's about how you don't, once you have this taste, you don't forget it, ever. So even if you fall down from the process of Krishna consciousness, 1:5 something, and then you go away, then you still remember that taste over and over again. 1:5:19. How does it start? Na vajano jatu kata katanchana rajan mukunda sevan yavadangra samsritim smaran mukundang rupa guhanam punar nivatma chai nabave sorry, that's the best line. Vihatamichen nabhavaya na vihatamichet narasa grahojanad. See, there's the word again, rasa. And what is this word here? Rasa graho. Graho, again, it's the word graha, right? So graha means to grab. So what happens? This person falls down from Krishna consciousness. It goes like, I don't like this anymore, like devotee took my shoes and nobody likes me anyway, and I'm leaving, and I think sense gratification is better anyway. I always thought that, and I'm out of here. And then they leave, and then they go, and then they get haunted. They're haunted by the ghost of rasa. So the ghost is coming, ooh, and rasa graha. They keep getting pulled. It's like, oh, God, I remember that time, and we sat down and we chanted japa, and I was washing the pots afterwards. We were so happy, and everyone's like, what are you doing here? It's like, I don't know, but they're grabbed by rasa because they felt it, they've tasted it, they got a sporty, and they can't. He says, let's look at the translation. He says, my dear Vyas, even though a devotee of Lord Krishna sometimes falls down somehow or other, he certainly does not undergo material existence like others, fruit of workers, etc. Because a person who has once relished the taste of the lotus feet of the Lord can do nothing but remember that ecstasy again and again. Okay, now to the live studio audience.
Prabhu, I was just thinking about Roma Harshana Sutta had a Pratilo marriage. Is that the reason that Sutta Goswami is called Sutta Goswami, right, Prabhu?
Pardon?
Roma Harshana had a Pratilo marriage.
Yes.
And his son Sutta Goswami is called Sutta Goswami because of the Pratilo marriage.
Oh, I suppose so. I'm not aware of that exact fact, but you can look it up.
Okay. Yeah, and I was also thinking, Prabhu, is it the reason Balram went off on pilgrimage because he didn't want the Kurukshetra war or, Duryodhana fighting? Is that the reason, Prabhu? Because you were mentioning...
Well, there's always internal and external reasons why Krishna does anything, but that's stated in the Bhagavatam and also the Mahabharata. That's why he left.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so I was just thinking, Prabhu, why Duryodhana he was also attached to Duryodhana. So is that, is that something that I just read, or is it that true, Prabhu, that he was... Like Balaram was attached to Duryodhana and Duryodhana was attached to Balaram. That makes him a devotee in one sense, right?
It makes what?
Him a devotee, right? Duryodhana.
It makes him a devotee?
Does it make him a devotee? Because he is attached to Balarama.
It seems so, but that just shows you how complicated the world is. How did Bhishma end up on the wrong side, And how did Duryodhana and Balaram have this affectionate relationship? We see a lot of times, let's say in our modern day assembly of devotees, everyone's like, this guy's not a devotee, that guy, blah, blah. It got all this stuff is like, hey, this is complicated. How do you figure it all out? Sometimes you don't. You have to kind of just rise a little bit above it and appreciate that things are complicated in this world. You had something to say, Ujjwala Rasa.
Hi, Krishna Guru Maharaj. Maharaj, over the years of being in Krishna consciousness, having been in this process for so long, one of the thoughts that was in my mind, which I had to go through over the past year or two, was that we're initially trained not to connect to anything material because we still have to develop a taste for the spiritual flavors. And for that purpose, we avoid everything that's not oriented towards Krishna consciousness. But at the end of the day, we are the summum bonum of all the flavors that have entered our lives. If we are able to make a comparison between Star Wars and the Bhagavatam, it's because we watched it at some time and now we understand it better in the context of spirituality. To deny who we are and where we came from, I think is not a great way to build our Krishna consciousness. To recognize who we are and where we came from, and then to understand what it truly means in a Krishna conscious way, helps you become a more balanced person. Because for me, at one point when I haven't developed the ruchi and I'm struggling, then like you talked about today, you lean back on those moments that bring you happiness. And then, the door opens up. And you don't know when you stepped in and when you walked in. But the taste for Krishna consciousness always pulls you back. And I was thinking about that a lot because as devotees, we don't seem to understand that much, my generation. The generations that's come in now, when I see these children, I'm able to learn so much more from them because they live very balanced lives. They don't, completely avoid everything and avoid all these material friends. But they're able to stay Krishna conscious even though they're absorbing all these different information. They're able to convert it very nicely and take what they need and not absorb the other stuff. So it was a thought that I wanted to share, and I wanted to hear from you if it was right or wrong, that you have to recognize who you are if you are to become what you want to be. And sometimes in Krishna consciousness, we deny it. We deny our parenthood, we deny our upbringing, we deny our tastes in a sense that, oh, now I'm Krishna conscious. And sometimes it comes back to bite you when you're down and out because you can't really recognize who you are at all because your Krishna consciousness hasn't built to the point where we can say, I have ruchi.
Well, I wouldn't say it sometimes comes back to bite you. It always comes back to bite you. Because reality is reality. And ultimately, we have to deal with it. And there is a way in which, at different phases of our life, we may have different levels of maturity and also different circumstances that we are working with. And we have to associate according to what we're given. However, an important point is that anything done artificially won't have the result that we're looking for. And maturity isn't something that you can fake, and it's also not something that you can necessarily speed up. Time has an effect on everything. And when you play an instrument, it's like, I know studying for tests. It's like, I'll do it at the last minute. That doesn't work for me. It hasn't had time to sink in. I know that I have to do it a little bit every day for at least a week. I mean, it depends on the size of the test. But, I have to do it every day and take a look, and I have to hear it from different angles and in different circumstances and make at least 3 or 4 times. What was that again? Can you say it again? I just said it. Say it again. Yeah, say it one more time. I forgot it. And then pretty soon something happens where it starts to lock in one's mind. And that happens throughout our life as well. Under different circumstances, we may present ourselves as being something we're not. This is mentioned by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in the Madhurya Kadambini. He said it's natural when new people come in and they're beginning that they have utsahan mayi. It means this overabundance of enthusiasm, like, I got this. It's like, you guys, come on, hurry up. It's like they just got there. It's like, wake up, everybody. And like, how come you're so tired? They don't know the person was, on Harinam and they're also taking care of 4 kids and, all these kinds of things. But they're like, I know this, and I know all these verses and, hey, I think I'm there already. This is Utsan Mai. It's kind of natural. Even when somebody starts learning the piano and they learn their first piece and then they go like, hey, I'm a maestro. Like, so after the various stages we go through, and then, for instance, sometimes when devotees fall down for one reason or another, they fall down from their practice because of a lack of faith, or because they get attached to sense gratification and it was a lot stronger undertow than they had thought it would be. They thought, maybe I can dabble a little bit and it'll be all right. The next thing is like, I can't let, it won't let me go, or I won't let it go. Something happened to me. And going through those experiences, Prabhupada says, in the light of the Bhagavat, sometimes become the pillar of success. And there is a point at which somebody has to become real and say, wait a minute, I just have to be who I am and actually practice Krishna consciousness. And I've seen it in myself and others, God brothers around me, over time. There's a way in which those who have had these kinds of experiences then get very real and say, I actually have to start over and be who I am. So I wouldn't say that it's a technique. It's a kind of a natural phenomena that happens to everybody in every kind of discipline, and you actually have to want to do it. It comes from within ourselves. It's not a game. It's not a plaything, Prabhupada says in the light of the Bhagavad. Going back to Godhead, it requires your heart and soul. You actually have to want to do this. And at any particular time, if you don't know that you want to do it, then Krishna's so kind. He can give reminders. Like, that's why Maya's there waiting. It's like, okay, come over here. You like this? Is that what you were looking for? It's like, not really. I think I like the other idea better. And when we're fully convicted, then bahunam jamanamante, gyanavam mam prapadite, vasudeva sarvamiti sa mahatma sudurlabha. It's not that Krishna is a thing, he's the thing. And when that conviction comes into the heart, then there's no more obstacles. And there's also a sense in which devotees can be real and admit, this is who I am, this is who I've been. It doesn't bother them because they're not falsely trying to project themselves as being something they're not. That's a good place to be in. It's not so easy because even amongst our friends, we might think like, well, I'm not going to tell them that because, that thing, I'm going to keep to myself. And maybe in some cases that's a good idea, but still it shows how protective we are. But Krishna is so expert, he'll help us to spill the beans at some point and embarrass us. And then it's kind of like, all right, it's already out. I might as well just be like a bhakta and then now you're getting somewhere. now you can make advancement. So it's a helpful observation in how we guide people. It requires expertise because everybody's on a different level. They need care and attention in different ways, and it's not such an easy demarcation to understand how much the ego is involved, and even some people don't know themselves. And we talked about young people growing up. They at a certain point they start observing and they go, "Is this me, or is this the momentum of my life, or whatever it is?" And they come to a crossroads. Everyone has to come to that point at some time and ask that question to know that they're doing it themselves. Om Tat Sat. Okay, there's one or two more. Rasa Sindhu Prabhu, and then, yes. And then Pavani Bhakti. We welcome Rasa Sindhu Prabhu, came all the way up from Southern California. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Guru Maharaj. Very appreciate it. My question is, Guru Maharaj, I've previously heard from you that we have to detach ourselves from the mind actually because the mind remains here. And I've also heard that the samskaras remain in the mind always, and so they reappear. So does the mind ever get purified, or?
Yes. Cheto darpana marjanam. The mind becomes marjanam. It's cleansed. And the samskars are overwritten, like in a computer program. You got one program, and then you write over it. The other one falls apart somehow, and the other new one takes over. So we write new samskars, and they cleanse the mind and heart. And yes, then just like an iron rod, you put it in fire, and it's no longer iron; it becomes fire. So the mind engaged, manmana bhavamat bhakto. If you engage the mind in thinking always of Krishna, then the mind becomes spiritualized, and it becomes purified of the previous samskars. I'm sorry, I interjected so quickly that I might have short-circuited your...
No, that's all.
Okay.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Pavani Bhakti.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj.
Hare
Please
Krishna.
accept my most humble obeisances, sir. I want to ask, I really liked your explanation about the saffron particle and how we get that feeling when a senior person comes who's more exalted. I was wondering also that, when a very pure Vaishnava comes, like even through the temple and bows down in front of Prabhupada and deities, we feel very ecstatic and like almost tears comes to our eyes and, the goosebumps. I wanted to ask, what's more to it, like other than the saffron particle? You mentioned something about the life airs get higher when a higher personality comes. Can you help us explain that more?
Well, there's more to us than we know. I mean, you study the Ayurveda, you'll see there are different energy channels in our bodies, and we react to different circumstances in our life in various ways. There's a mind-body connection, and there are descriptions in the Shastra about etiquette and the physical connection between, it's not mechanical, obviously, but there is a way in which our life airs are affected by different circumstances in our life. For instance, if you see a gruesome accident or something like that, you might feel sick to your stomach. Our heart reacts, actually, modern research shows, before our brain reacts. There are as many nerve endings in our heart and so forth. And there are ways in which our body and our minds are going through a lot of things automatically that we're not even aware of. And when we're in a spiritual environment, those things that's why we use the word visceral. I like that word. It means that there's a physical reaction that takes place to things that we're seeing around us. And so seeing a great saintly person, there's a sense that we have when we see that person of the life airs rising up, or as described in the Shastra, that's actually happening. So you're supposed to stand up. Oftentimes we bow down, but the Shastra says you see it, stand up. Then you can bow down, but that's the idea. Yes.
So Guru Maharaj, because we were discussing about Uttama Shloka, such a nice name for the Lord. So I just wanted to say that today morning before you arrived, we were like waiting for you, and then when the Darshanarti ended, and then Monisha, she sang the Ujjvala Varana.
Oh.
Then after that, Shivatsa did Brahma Samhita, and then Gita Priya did the Divinity and Divine Sages. And these kids, they are so well trained at, like, even though we were like missing you and waiting for you, but they just, held us throughout the time. And I just felt, very bright future for ISV because of these kids. They're so well trained by you. And they sing, chant just like, your tunes and everything. So I just...
See, you're making us all proud here. I felt the same thing when I walked in and I heard, hey, that's Divinity and Divine Service, and I noticed how you all were leading it, that I realized that is spiritual training. You keep the transcendental vibration going. Always remember Krishna, never forget Krishna. How do you do that? And we have to have the ways and means to do that. And once you have that in your life, then you're wealthy. Because if that's your habit, that, okay, let's sit down, let's watch TV. No, let's sit down, let's chitter chatter. No, let's do some shlokas. Chitter chatter later, and later never comes oftentimes. So that's a way to get through one whole lifetime and actually go back to Godhead. Thank you for bringing that up. Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Thank you so much for a beautiful class. Maharaj, I was thinking about two pastimes. One is Roma Harsha being destroyed or being killed by Lord Balaram. And the second pastime, which is collateral, is in Chaitanya Charitamrita, when Meenaketana Ramadas, he's in the Avesha of Nityanand Prabhu, and Gunarava Khan does not offer respects to him, he's worshipping the deities. And of course, Meenaketana Ram is little agitated, he's not angry enough. And Gunarava Khan is still considered a great devotee because he continued and he did not also get angry. So how do we compare and contrast these two situations where the Supreme Personality of Godhead is being disrespected in a way, and it's such a drastic action, whereas worshipping the deities?
Well, Kaviraj Goswami's brother has mentioned that he fell down after that incident.
Yeah, that's the
That's
second one,
an
Maharaj.
offense.
Like in that chapter, Gunarava Mishra, he's worshipping the deities.
Yeah.
And Meenaketana Ramdas is sitting in front and he's in the Avesha. And he does not fall down. But actually the brother of Kaviraj Krishnadas Goswami, he falls down because he's actually chastising and he's saying bad things about Meenaketana Ramdas.
Right.
So I was just curious that at that point of time, Gunarava Khan, he is not falling down. It's the brother of Kaviraj Krishnadas Goswami that's falling down. So, but the only thing that was mentioned here is that he did not get angry because he was worshipping the deities. So I was just trying to understand that, as you mentioned, there are two reasons that when Guru is there and when the Supreme Personality of God is there, you have to get up of the Vyasasana. And Gunarava Mishra is, at that time, he's just worshipping the deities. So is that the reason that he didn't...
Well, it means, stay busy. Don't get involved. In fact, it's mentioned in the, sometimes you have to get involved when you take responsibility, which is really difficult. But the Chaitanya Bhagavat mentions that, when Vaishnavas are arguing, you shouldn't take sides. But that doesn't apply here necessarily because there was an actual offense that took place. And it just shows also that it's a very individual. It has a lot to do with what's in the heart. To make an aparadha requires some misconception that leads to malice in some way that you're expressing. The other kinds of aparadhas that are non-malicious are easily overcome, but when there's malicious intent, especially against devotees, then it becomes pronounced and difficult to overcome. So in that situation, there's a way in which everyone might have had a different mindset. Because Kaviraj Goswami's brother was so into it, and there was some sense of indignation, and that caused a greater offense in that situation.
Thank you, Maharaj. I think the point that you mentioned about spiritual integrity, or it's between you and Krishna also, the sincerity, I think that applies here. Thank you so much, Maharaj.
Okay, thank you for the excellent question. Prabhu?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Maharaj, for such a wonderful and nectarian class. I have one question. Shamru Prabhu asked, and Pavani Bhakti Mataji also touched upon that point. You quoted the verse about the snake drinking the poison. Many times when I speak Krishna Katha, I feel like that snake. Because I know in my heart that I still have enviousness towards Krishna most of the times. Maybe not in an assembly, but otherwise the tendency to enjoy matter, all of these still exist within our heart. And you mentioned as long as we are doing our best, it's good, we can continue. And for our own purification, we want to be engaged in speaking Krishna Katha and hearing Krishna Katha. But when I ask myself that question about, am I doing my best? The answer most of the time is no. So how do I continue speaking Krishna Katha while also knowing that I am not doing my best? Thank you.
Well, doing one's best, that's a very general phrase, and how does one interpret it? Krishna's opinion, apichet sudaracharo bhajate mamananyabhag sadhareva samantavya samyag vyavasito hisa. If one is properly situated. Properly situated means your intent is correct. You may recognize that I'm not where I want to be. I may feel fallen. In fact, paradoxically, there's a way in which the more one advances, the more one feels I'm unqualified. This is mentioned by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu when he teaches the symptoms of bhava to Sanatana Goswami, and said this is paradoxical, that the more qualified somebody comes, the more they feel like I'm the most unqualified person there is. Look at Kaviraj Goswami. He says, anybody hears my name, they're going to lose all their pious credits. He says, I'm lower than a worm in the stool. And, it's not just a humorous proclamation, but he actually feels that way because of dainya, or extreme humility. So what it means to do one's best is to be properly situated in Krishna consciousness, which means that my determination is that someday I'll become qualified to follow in the footsteps of the pure devotees. And we have no choice. We have to go on with our service, even when we feel unqualified, as evidenced by the verse, Jata Shraddha Makkatasu Nirvinat Sarvakarmasu Veda Dukatmakam Kamams Parityagye Pyanishvara Tato Bhajetamam Prita Shraddha Lurjanishchaya Jushamanam Statan Kamams Duko Darkams Dagarayan. Krishna recognizes that a devotee sometimes is in a position when he or she feels that I know what to do, I know what not to do, but I can't do it. Pyanishvara means I don't have the power to do it yet. And then Krishna says, just keep doing it. Because what you're doing is very dear to me, you're very dear to me, and you can have a little remorse for it, but not so much that you quit. You have to keep going. Otherwise, how are you going to become purified? So one of the reasons that when, for instance, we speak, we take shelter of the previous acharyas, because like, I'm not doing this, I'm not qualified, I'm just speaking on their behalf. I'm doing this for my own purification. Prabhupada mentions when you write something, don't think, I'm going to become a famous author, everyone will know me. Just write, I'm trying to purify myself in any service. That's why we always talk about with book distribution, don't go out because you want to be number one or you want to lord it over others. I'm so smart, I can make somebody take a book. You may be, but that's not the purpose. The purpose is self-purification. I'm going out as a humble servant of the servant, and I can go for purification. So in any circumstance, you have to do that, and one of the best ways is to practice of teaching Krishna consciousness to others in a humble way. And then when you do that, even if somebody has a very rudimentary understanding of Krishna consciousness, even in that state, you don't have to be, the Paramahamsa Bhagavat devotee in order to have that effect on people. If you're a very simple, even new devotee, but your mood is, I'm following what was taught to me by my guru, and I have full faith in the Shastras. And such a person teaches, Sarva Dharma Parijaya. Everyone goes, yeah, look at that person. He's surrendering, and he just walked off the street. And everyone gets affected by that too. Krishna consciousness is conducted through the sincere and surrendered heart of a devotee, and it doesn't matter if you're a neophyte or not. It'll still conduct through that process. That's why we always have to realign ourselves that it's not me. I'm just a peon. Prabhupada said, my power comes from being a carrier. I don't take any credit. I give all credit to my Guru Maharaj. When I was with Keshav Bharti Maharaj, we met Prabhupada in San Francisco. So the temple president was introducing us all at a darshan. And so Bhaktidas said that he was our temple president. He said, here's Keshav Bharti Das. And Prabhupada appreciated the service that he was doing, and Keshav Bharti said, it's all your mercy, Prabhupada. And Prabhupada hit the table. He goes, it is not? And everyone was like, what? Especially Keshav Bharti. He was like, what did I do? I made an offense. And he said, it is the mercy of my Guru Maharaj. He was so strong at that point. The devotee doesn't, he keeps that idea that I'm doing this, I'm great. My kirtan is like, look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me. If somebody pure-hearted with that's why Srila Bhaktisiddhanta sometimes would pick a person who couldn't sing. And they say, you sing, because, simple brahmachari rakes leaves, you sing Hare Krishna. To prove the point. It's not about, this whole thing. What comes through is the sincere endeavor, the sincerity of the heart of the devotee and the humility. So on that basis, we have to stand up and preach. It's the order of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And whatever level he gives you, you have to take it. That's why Srila Bhaktisiddhanta in his Vyasa Puja, he said, what am I, an animal in the zoo? I'm sitting up here in front of everybody, speaking, taking taking the praises of others. So people, what am I, some kind of beast to be able to do this? He said, no. This is the order of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that you become guru. So whatever level of guru you happen to be at right now, and everybody has some responsibility to take that, wherever you are, to take that responsibility, you're following Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and if that's your mood, then it becomes successful. And the second that you don't have that mood, then everything becomes spoiled. And you have to rectify. Otherwise, it's something else. You're not carrying the vibration in the proper way. So it's a science, and you have to tune into it in order for it to work. And part of our, when we fall down from it, we realize I was singing the wrong tune. I wasn't carrying it. I was thinking like, yeah, this is me. But that's why we do it and fail, and then we refine. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us from various places from around the world. Thank you for coming all the way out from North Carolina to visit us here at ISV. We're glad to see you back. And Domi, thank you for visiting us, I think, for the first time, right? Welcome. Thank you. Yucham. Now we're going to have Guru Puja. You didn't have it right. We'll have Guru Puja, followed by prasadam for everybody in San Mateo, Santa Clara, San Francisco counties. Anybody who wants to eat, please come down. Thank you, everyone who's joined us online. Prema Premi, thank you very much. Hare Krishna, everybody. Vanchakalpadrushya, Kripasinabhevacha, Patitanam Pavanibhyo, Vaishnavebhyo, Namo Namaha, Nantakoti Vaishnavini ki jai, Subhadra ki jai, Hare Krishna.